Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Willfully Wrought. My name is William, and today I'm just really excited to be here for officially more than 1 year of producing content on the internet.
And my name is Will, and I couldn't have said it better myself. Will.
Dude, and we had expressed this in private, but there's nothing better than like public displays of gratuitous congratulatory praises. So congratulations, Will. We've been on for a year.
Congratulations to you too. Congratulations to you for making it look easy, because God knows this was not easy. It's easy talking. It's easy talking to you, and it's easy having this to look forward to. But it is an investment. It's an investment, and it's also I would say we do this more. Our doing this is more than just a hobby.
Yeah, I feel like we crossed that boundary somewhere after like the first 3 months. It was something that I had thought about, like, oh hey, what am I gonna do if I'm putting this time into podcasting? And it's like, oh well, it's this drain and whatever. Like psychologically, it wasn't great at first, but then I started to feel the catharsis of just having a conversation. It's something that I had explored, like personally. I had been out there and like, I would sit by myself for lunches and I'd sit off in corners, like, and just, let me just stare at my phone for a while. I am a robot. But that,
Mhm.
I started sitting with other folks and talking to them a couple years back and enjoying that time and getting on here. And I used to be way more social. I'm not sure what happened, but I was like, I'm not social anymore. And now I'm starting to get back into that. So just having these conversations, exploring a discourse and having fun with people, it's been real good. And thank you, Tizix, for the congratulations. I appreciate that. You're awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tizix. That's awesome. Thanks for being a part of us. Um, Thanks for being a part of the community. Uh, yeah. Uh, did you ever think that you were going to be a podcaster?
No, no. It was now. Let me preface this. Like I've played video games my whole damn life, and I have always like the rise of people streaming video games. Like that, you get this idea in your head when you play video games as a hobby that hey, maybe I could sit down and play video games and make that my job.
Mhm.
And it does sound like something you think you can do. And then it's really weird. There's a lot of niche markets out there. And like the market keeps changing of what type of content is popular. But after my cousin streamed for a while and watching him deal with that, and it wasn't something that he continued to do, but he always said, he's like, it was great while I was doing that, and he could absolutely see making a career out of it. And I didn't see it at that time, but now I have a desire to produce some video game content and get it out there and play games on the internet for people to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I had a gaming PC, I'd be right there with you.
Well, I mean, Apple just released some new computers. They've got this little thing called a Mac Studio with it's got a processor in it. They're calling the M3 Ultra, which is very literally wire by wire two M3 Pro processors just stitched together up the middle.
Oh,
And that
okay.
makes it super ultra. And hey, you could play games on that. It's got a pretty competent video or a GPU, like a video processor. It just starts at like
I
$1,700.
was I was about to say remortgage my house to get one, right? So
Yeah.
I wanted to share a little bit of an anecdote about my lunch today. And I know that this is very, very simple, but at my work it was Employee Appreciation Week, and it culminated in my GM buying lunch for the branch, which is great. Now, it is very Catholic up here in Buffalo, New York, which means that Lent is a very important thing. Lent started this past Wednesday. And for those people who are not in the know, typically on Fridays you do not eat meat,
Okay.
which limited where we could get food. Because I would absolutely devour meat tonight. And in fact, today I did eat meat. We're getting there. Um, so one of our employees was like, "Hey, can we not eat at certain places? I just want to be able to, I want to honor this." And we were like, "Absolutely. We'll get what we want. You find a place, you choose the place." And he chose this place in Buffalo called Mooney's. Now, Mooney's is known uh, locally for their mac and cheese.
Ooh.
And I looked at their menu, and oh my goodness, their options for mac and cheese are crazy. There's Philly mac and cheese, like a Philly cheesesteak mac and cheese. There's the buffalo chicken mac and cheese.
Ooh.
There's shrimp mac and cheese.
Okay.
There, I mean, so much, so much. There was one that caught my eye, and I went, I have to. Now, my favorite sandwich that's ever been created is the Reuben.
Yes.
They had Reuben mac and cheese.
So, okay, you've got to tell me about it because my assumptions about what Reuben mac and cheese is are immediately awful. But go ahead.
So, yeah, if you think now, I need you to understand this was not a Reuben with macaroni on it. It was the bottom layer mac and cheese with the innards of a Reuben in the middle and more mac and cheese on top. Now, there has been 0 moments in my life where I've taken a bite of something and, like a movie, just hearing voiceover go, I bet you're wondering how I got to this point. But I definitely took one bite of that mac and cheese, which I still have. And the first thing I thought was, oh my. It's not disgusting. It's not disgusting. It's very good. But I took 7 bites and went, yeah, that's it for me, dog.
Man, I love a good Reuben. No, I feel you. I feel you. I just don't see using macaroni and cheese as bread.
I mean, definitely had a fork. Listen, I still had I took 7, 8 bites. I have about 4 pounds of this left because the portion size was huge, is huge. And I will attempt to eat more of it, but it is definitely a side more than an entree at this point.
Yeah, I think Tizik's reaction probably echoes mine with a ew.
Yeah.
Like now,
Yeah.
do you think like a mac and cheese bar or restaurant would do well? Like if you had like you've got Subway where you go in and you're like, hey, I want the sandwich with all these things on it. You've got you've got those hibachi grill joints where you go in and you throw everything in a bowl and they cook it for you. It's like they make an affair out of it, and it's really fun. But like, would a mac and cheese bar work? Now, like Noodle House works.
Noodle House works. There's also Noodles and Company. And even to a certain extent, Panera at one point had multiple different types of mac and cheese. I think yes. Now the thing about it couldn't be like Chipotle, right? Where you come up and you stare at you're behind plastic and you tell them what you want. Because you have different kinds of cheeses, right?
Yeah,
And so what's really good about mac and cheese is when the cheese has time to set in the pasta. Because otherwise it's like oil and water, right? They're separated and you
yeah.
want them to kind of mix. Um, I would say uh, I think it would totally be worth it. I think it would be a better type of like I almost said buffet. Guys, there's so many mac and cheese bars. Thanks,
Yeah.
Santa. Yeah, we know. We know.
Wait. No, I didn't know. I posed that question with genuine curiosity and interest. Like, are there mac and cheese bars near me? Is this like all the single females the Pornhub tells me about? Like,
Oh my God.
is this something that's around me that I'm unaware of?
I mean, there is in Power and Light, there is a place where they're known for their mac and cheese. At least there was when we were there. And when I was still going to Power and Light. I kind of aged out of that. More people should age out of going to Power and Light, if I'm being honest. We're talking a lot about Kansas City right now, and I know that we started with talking about this disgusting food. It's not disgusting. It's good. I will eat more. You know what? I'll make a post tomorrow proving that I'm eating the Reuben mac and cheese.
please tag me in your Instagram so I can watch you eat Reuben mac and cheese. I want to see a picture of that bread.
Absolutely. Yeah, will do. 100%. That's the content the people want. So, but we wanted to, you and I, William, wanted to talk a little bit about some of the local news happening in Kansas City. And we have a couple of things that we wanted to kind of just talk while we have some folks here. You're, I can follow your lead, whatever you want to talk about first.
Yeah, man. There's actually a couple pieces, and but before we start talking, hey, trigger warning for our audience, and this one's not about sex. We're gonna talk politics a little bit tonight, which
Yeah.
may be depressing or angering. And this isn't the start of that post. This is just some Kansas City directly related news. Now,
Mhm.
I think we're all aware about Elon's Doge with this current administration making massive cuts to the lots of government departments. And there is a large building down here in Kansas City called the IRS. And they've got quite a few employees. And my understanding is that the plan is for a lot of those to be cut out. And there was actually a recent post by Doge saying that the GSA was going to be talking about listing the IRS building as something that they wouldn't renew their lease on, or maybe sell, or maybe portions of the building would be auctioned off and sold. And the whole thing is just genuinely frightening.
Yeah. I'm still trying to wrap my, because you told me this. I hadn't read this or seen this. The fact that the government who owned the building is just like, yeah, we're just gonna sell it off. The IRS is pretty important. I know a lot of people have their, it's not perfect. No government agency is 100% perfect. And everyone can shake their fist at the IRS. That's a right as an American, right?
Yeah.
Being able to shake your fist at the IRS and say, "Give me my money," and they're like, "Next year." Right. But I for a while I've always kind of had the opinion like maybe the IRS, before we were making cuts was kind of underfunded in the first place. Probably needed some more people. Definitely does now. However, I do like that Doge is no longer allowed to fire government employees.
Yeah, there was a which senator? Do you remember which senator brought that case?
I don't know. I not off the top of my head. I can find it out, but good move. Thank you. Thank you. That
Yeah.
was that's a good move.
Yeah.
That's a good move. I like it when 20-year-olds are not able to fire career government employees.
It does feel a little bit weird.
Mhm.
Barely voting, not in more than one election. Yeah, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like the country changes a lot over time. Do
Mhm.
want to put a call out. Russell Andrews says Nick and Jake's has the best mac and cheese they've ever eaten. I'm gonna have to
Thanks,
find
Mom.
Nick. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find me a Nick and Jake's and try the mac and cheese. I've got very stiff opinions on mac
Are
and
you
cheese. Like,
an elbow fan or do you do shells?
there's that nostalgic traditional part of my heart that is
Sure.
like, hey, mac and cheese is made at home with a gallon of
Mhm.
milk and like 3 sticks of butter and 3 pounds of
Oh,
cheese and like 5 boxes of noodles. And when after you've cooked it and baked it and served it, when it's cooled in the 9 by 13 glass casserole dish, it is one solid chunk of cheese with noodles in it that in order to defrost, you have to put it on the lower power setting for a few minutes to get the whole thing to melt and not just the outside be scorched to a crisp.
just 1 second. I'm gonna leave and then come right back.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Well, yeah, while Will is working on reloading his internet, I do think he's coming right back. Maybe. Okay, welcome back, sir. Welcome back. Um, To finish up our year celebration before we actually no, this is our thing.
Very much so. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
is 100% our thing.
I want to comment on some of our statistics for our 1 year celebration, and then we'll come back to Kansas City news.
Yes.
We have had 691 downloads of our podcast since its inception and the release of the first episode in February of 2024. On average, that's 60 downloads a month or 2 downloads a day, which for like the first year of podcasting without some outrageous viral kickoff like Haktua, or without like $1 billion in the background to fund us and get us off the ground and produce curated content for some company, I consider that's just fine. I'm having a good time doing this, and we're going all right.
I would say it's the epitome of grassroots. We got a grassroots following here. So
yeah, and we are internationally recognized. I do want to say that we have lost our one Russian downloader, and now we have someone in Germany. So I think we made them upset with our comments about this when we brought it up last time.
you know what? That's fine. But to our German listener, who will probably find this on YouTube tomorrow, thank you.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate that.
That's right. We do.
All right. So back to KC News.
So there is one piece of news, and we kind of touched on the IRS, and I'm moving away from that. That's specific to the local space, and it's a bit sad. A local celebrity to Kansas City passed away recently, I believe today. And it was Mr. Danny Cox.
Yeah.
This is a gentleman who devoted his life to music and to entertaining folk. He worked with a local playwright by the name of Gene Mackey, and both of them wrote plays and musicals together. And I was lucky enough to actually jam with Danny and stand in, and I don't know if I actually ever acted with Danny. I did some rehearsals with him. And what a genuinely awesome person. Loved all of his stories, no matter how outrageous they were, and they were outrageous. And never a dull moment on stage with that man. I think I remember I remember Xanda. So Xanda, my wife, was equity stage manager at this children's theater for Young America. And I remember anytime Danny was in a show, she would just go, I would ask her how the show went, and she would be like, "You would never believe what Danny did today." Genuinely an incredible person. Did you ever, because I know you were a stage manager for Theater for Young America as well, did you ever have a moment to stage manage not only him, but also him in one of their pieces that they wrote, he and Gene Mackey?
I don't. I'm not aware if the time that I worked with Danny, if it was a piece that he wrote or not. It was a long time ago now. I mean, this is probably back in the early aughties. But I do remember working with Danny, and that man could tell a story like no other. There was a quality of that human being that I will aspire to replicate as I grow as a human being myself. He could take any moment, anywhere, and wake up from one of his 15-minute micro naps. Let me
on stage, by the way, on stage during the show.
man sitting there dead asleep, just, and you'll be like, "Hey, what's up?" And he'll come up and he'll join the conversation because he did not miss a word.
Nope.
And he would just jump in and begin. If he was in a part, he would come right in where he was supposed to say his line. If he was backstage, he would jump in and begin telling a story related to the content that he was somehow sleep listening to. I will. I aspire to be able to tell stories as well as that gentleman. And
yeah,
amazing.
And an incredible voice, actually. So to our Kansas City listeners, who I think is everyone, you would know him from a particular jingle that plays on the radio all the time for the grass pad. The grass pad
He wrote the grass pad jingle?
He did. Yes, that's Danny
Ah,
Cox.
that's glorious. I know a guy who worked at grass pad for years. He's gonna be
The
so happy. Well, I
the
mean,
grass pad's
yeah.
high on grass. That's right.
We're always high on grass.
Yeah,
That I remember that. That's the only thing I remember from the grass pad jingle.
that's him. That was him. Uh, Truly incredible. I wanted to give some time to him. Just an incredible individual. I will never forget. Um, I was a stand-in for a rehearsal for, I think, one of the best things that has come out of Kansas City is a Gene Mackey and Danny Cox play called Fair Ball, and it's all about the Negro Leagues baseball teams.
Yeah.
Um, it would, I think they did it every other year, maybe every 2 years. They would put this show on, um, and I just being on stage while Danny is delivering these incredibly powerful songs about race in America, in a show about for children, by the way, um, it just incredible. And I couldn't think of a better person to learn about the Negro Leagues baseball teams from.
Yeah.
I mean, that voice was incredible. Um, his speaking voice. Did you know that he played Audrey too, on stage?
I did not know that he
He
had that role. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't think of a better Audrey too, and I've seen the movie, and, the movie's great, but man, that's a performance I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, pour one out for Danny Cox tonight. I have water, so
Yeah. Gotta watch the carpet.
there you go. But yeah, I definitely wanted to air some love and support to his family, and I don't think we'll see the likes of a Danny Cox anytime soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, his presence will be missed. Absolutely.
Mhm.
In another piece of news centered around Kansas City out here, this is going to be one of those things where you either care or you don't. But it actually got me as a what the what moment. When I moved up here 22 some odd years ago, and started driving around, listening to a new radio. When you drive your car across the country, there's new radio stations. So you have to find something. And I grew up listening to 103.9. It was Rock 104. That was not at all the same station in Kansas City, like down in the Southeast. People know Rock 104. I don't even know if that's what it is today. I'm not down there anymore. But driving up here, I had to, the CD player didn't always work in my 87 Ranger. So I had to pick between CDs I had, and some of them worked. Most of them did not. So there was a lot of bluegrass. And on the way up here, when I actually got into the area, I had to find a new station. So I did that whole scan thing where you go through, and the station I ended up settling on was 98.9 The Rock. I mean, that's my general, like, I'm just listening to background sounds. So I want that music in the background. And when I started driving to work every morning, or for years and overnights, I'd be driving home from work early in the morning. It would be the Johnny Dare morning show. And at first, I was not a big fan. But over time, I got accustomed to it. I found things that I did like. I looked forward to those bits. I started listening and not ignoring it. And I learned that, and even today, on the way to work, the 7-minute drive from my abode to my work cube, I listened to the Johnny Dare Morning Show, and they were interviewing the show manager by the name of Mike, and I was like, "Oh wow, it's weird for him to be on as a guest," but I thought nothing of it. And
Right.
then at like 11 o'clock, I'm flipping through the news, getting ready to go to lunch, and I learned that today's broadcast of the Johnny Dare Morning Show was the last broadcast of the Johnny Dare Morning Show by Odyssey, the company that owns the studio.
Mhm.
And it really kind of hit me. Like, I've been listening to that show for so long now, like well over a decade. That's been my morning show. Like, I mean, I want to say probably about 12 to 15 years. That's what I've listened to pretty much every morning. And it's just, man, that's going to be on now. Like, what's going to be on?
Yeah.
And it got me a little bit. Like, I didn't tear up. Like, I can never listen to. Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It really does kind of like hit you in the soft spot. It's it's definitely something that I wasn't expecting. Now, I don't think that he's done with broadcast. I could definitely see him picking up a podcast style show, but I also
Sure.
know that he's well paid and his crew's well paid. He might just not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's one of those things that it surprised me. And in particular, like every year they do the Christmas thing, the Hope for the Holidays.
Yeah.
And I listened to it the first year, and it's one of those things that reminded me that I'm a human being.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
like listening to people pour their hearts out and listening to the community responding and providing them monetary assistance or like service as assistance to help them, get their life back on track. I mean, it got me so bad a couple of times that I tuned out, like I tuned off of 98.9 for a couple of weeks through the Christmas season because I didn't need that
Oof.
kind of emotional turmoil on my way to go in and be like customer service.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle it, and it was just it's one I'm gonna miss that. Like I'm gonna miss
Mhm.
that coming around next year to not. I'm gonna miss not having to dodge Hope for the Holidays.
Don't worry, there'll be something else that you'll have to dodge. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think that he will be back. Those folks will be back in some capacity. Um, are we able to follow them? Are they on? Do they have any type of social media presence?
I mean, everything that I'm aware of was for the show. Like the personal stuff was always kept private, like it should be.
Sure,
Uh,
sure, sure,
but I haven't heard any announcement as of yet of what those characters are going to be doing moving forward.
sure. And they were doing it for a long time. I mean, you moved up.
32 years.
Yeah, and at that point, like, good grief, if only we could keep podcasting for 32 years. And at a certain point, yeah, we'll probably hang up the headphones.
Yeah.
That'll be a good time to turn in.
All right.
Uh,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to take a moment to thank our listeners and viewers. We are, early on the streaming business, so we do appreciate joining us on this broadcast. We appreciate the follows on Facebook. Appreciate the subscriptions here, and we made jokes about saying like and subscribe, but yes, likes and subscribes here actually help our content out. So thank you so much, and we'll keep doing that. And moving on to the next piece of news. Will, I think you had a couple pieces you wanted to share.
I actually have just I wanted to make you squee live.
Squeeing.
I did. Yeah, I almost made you do a spit take, which I would have been like, well, my job's done. But no, so I went I was up in Rochester, New York. I had a management meeting, and there's a fantastic game store up there. And it is a game store, but it's slowly becoming more just nerd store, which I love. It's called Millennium Games. And my son is very into Legos. And now he's also really big into robots.
Ooh.
And I said, you know what? He's old enough, he's respectful enough, he has the eye. I think I'm gonna buy him something for his birthday.
Ooh.
So I did some research into some Gunpla. Gundam models.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So here's the thing. It can be. And granted, I'm not gonna spend. I think I found one. It wasn't in the store. This is just something I heard. There's like an $11,000 one of these models.
$11,000 in plastic pieces I have to put together myself.
I mean, it's huge too. You can like fit in it, but I don't want it. No, that's not what I want.
Wait. No, you do want it. You do want it. You just don't want to have to pay $11,000. If somebody was like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you this," all right, say no more. It's mine.
I mean, if they are willing to give it to me,
yeah.
If they're willing to give it to me, but listen, if you're gonna buy something for $11,000, the thing better move Like, I better be able to walk down the street in this, right?
Yeah.
Gundam is mechs, big mobile suits, mobile suit Gundam. Um, so I bought him an introductory one, and it was supposed to be for his birthday. And I came home, and I bought a little nerdy thing for my wife, and I gave it I gave her the thing I bought her in front of John, which was a dumb move. I know this, because then he goes, "Did you buy me anything?" And I lied. I said, "No, I didn't buy anything for you." Because we don't always buy things for you when we go out. Which made him very upset. Again,
I think
that
I'm
was
upset a little bit too. Like,
so Xanda looked at me, gave me a look, and she was like I was like, "Ugh." And I like, did the, "Should I go get it for him?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah." So I went down and I gave him that Strike Gundam.
Ooh,
I was
nice.
hoping there was one with a sword, because we're not so into guns, but um he was able to build the shield, and then my wife built the rest of it. And she had a grand old time. She
That's
loved it.
awesome.
And he's playing with it, and it's really cool. It's super cool. I'm super glad uh that he's into it. I got him hooked on Metabots.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Dad, can I buy a Metabee?" And my heart soared and then was crushed, because no, you can't buy a Metabee. They don't do that, because Metabots is nowhere to be found. Metabots is an anime from my childhood that I decided to share with John. Um, but what I really wanted to share with you was they had some card sleeves
Oh.
for a certain monster universe.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now they didn't have the big guy,
Of
but
course.
they did have uh the best villain.
Oh, so is that a King Ghidorah firing lightning card sleeve?
That's Monster Zero, my friend. Yes,
Nice.
that
That's
is
okay.
King. Yep.
That's amazing. I love it.
They had this, and they had Mothra, and Rodan. They also had those were the 3 that they had, and I was about to get Mothra, and then I went, "Nah." Nah, and so I got that. So, yeah, that's exactly what it is, and they're just as cool as in person as they are on the camera feed.
That's super awesome. That actually makes me really happy. One of the things I keep on my desk, speaking of cards, is I've got this shiny foily Godzilla King of the Monsters. That was
Hell
actually a
yeah.
gift from one of our previous guests, Tom.
Awesome.
Gifted this to me many years ago, and I keep it on my desk. Like, that's just, it's one of those things. Never mind all the Godzilla art on the walls behind me that I see as I walk through my house. Sometimes I'm at my desk and I'm looking in the other direction, and I need a little motivation. And that's one of the things that I'm like, oh yeah, hey, it's Godzilla. It's kind of weird to use that as a inspirational bit, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had to. I had to. If and there I was bummed that they didn't have any more Godzilla sleeves, but I was also like, "Fuck yeah. That's right. Sell out of them."
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, they are. I think they are talking about a sequel to Godzilla minus one, and
They are.
I can only imagine that, like, the original budget of that movie was something like 70 million, and then they
Mhm.
made that back like by huge amounts. Yeah, yes, Roboticus, Screonk indeed. um, but they are working on a sequel, and I can't imagine that they're not going to put more into that budget. And so 15 million. Thank you for the correction. So 15 million, not 70. But of course they made so much money back from that. They're definitely going to pour a little bit more money into the production of the next film, and we're going to see hopefully amazing things from it. I'm really excited for it. It's just one of those things I'm looking forward to.
I am too. I still say that the best movie of 2023 was Godzilla minus one.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it's just there's no comparison. nothing I saw in 2023 matched uh what that movie was able to elicit from me in the theater. Godzilla has never made me cry before. All right. And also it's the first time I actually cared for the human characters.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch 2 versions of this film right now on Netflix. The color version and the what is it? Godzilla -1 black and white version.
I didn't know they made one in black and white. I don't know. I don't know if I'll go and watch it. I love the color. I mean, is it like way higher def or something?
It's in reference to
Oh yeah,
the very
1954.
first
Yeah.
Godzilla film. And I have not watched it yet, but I think I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna.
All
I think
right.
I'm gonna. God, sorry. I'm just gonna gush about Godzilla -1 for a second. That sequence of Godzilla chasing that tiny wooden fisher boat um, lives rent free in my head, and I think about it probably 3 times a week. How no one thought to do that before Godzilla -1. What an incredible vision. I'm done. We're good.
Okay.
We're good.
Are you no? Listen. I'm never gonna halt someone on a Godzilla tirade. I mean, there's something about 100-meter tall lizards going on a rampage and destroying cities that fills my heart with joy. And
Yeah.
watching a human being going on a joy-filled tirade about how Godzilla rampages, it just also fills my heart with joy. So yeah.
I remember talking to my son. This was just recently. We were talking in the car. Zand was there, and we we were talking about uh oh he was talking about guns in the army, and he was like, the armies are the good guys in Godzilla movies, and I said under my breath, well, actually, those movies are more about how the army is not good, like inefficient, and can't solve all the problems. And Xanda slapped me real hard on the shoulder. I was like, yeah, you're right. He's not ready for that.
That's awesome, man. So moving to current events, that was
Yes.
it was listed in the thing, it was listed in the title of this broadcast. We should probably actually have some current events up there. I had
Yeah.
wanted to gotta start the radicals young. Yes indeed.
Yeah.
But moving to current events, I had wanted to bring up some I wanted to bring up some AI news. It's one of those things that I'm really passionate about.
Mhm.
When I mean, so deep in the bottom of my heart, I'm not I'm not a doomer. I don't think that AI is going to kill us all. I think that I think that the actual use and application of it, once it's fully developed, is going to augment human experience in literally all things. So there was just a couple of pieces of news that popped up here lately for AI that I had wanted to go over because I thought they were amazing.
Yeah, let's do it.
They've got a couple of voice models out. They're actually becoming more frequent. It used to be a chatbot, and you would type something in, and it would generate a response and send it back to you. And that makes sense. That's how we've handled customer support, honestly, in a lot of different ways for many years. Like, oh, hey, what do you want to talk about? You type something in, and it'd be like, oh, do you mean this? And you would kind of select an option. Like, it's always been that kind of tree, but now it's a lot more natural language, and that it could hop into this conversation that we're having and probably respond appropriately without much issue. However, sorry, I digressed. But they've got these voice models that now naturally speak and respond, and you can actually just set them up to talk to each other. And of course, they'll have an AI slop conversation where they're providing the most customer service friendly responses, if that's the way that they're programmed to speak and respond to another. On a side piece, there is a encrypted language called Gibberlink. I think that I'm
Okay.
right on that. It's basically a set of sequences of squeaks and sounds and beeps and boops that can be interpreted as language. And there's a couple videos out there of a couple of AIs having a conversation with one another on two cell phones sitting next to each other, where the AI are just speaking back and forth, having a conversation with the preface that they're hiding out in the mainframe. For some reason, and both of them know Gibberlink, and they were given the instructions to have a private conversation. So they begin to, in this Gibberlink set of squeaks and squeals, exchange private keys with one another so that they can encrypt their conversation. And the way that that was set up, with all the beeps and boops, they were able to have a conversation that at our current level of technology, we cannot decode that conversation. Now, it was most likely just inane jabber and bullshit, because that's what they were programmed to have that conversation about. But it was just a set of squeaks and boops. And then we don't have the processing power to break the encryption that they used to beep and boop at one another. We will not know what they said.
Jeez. So, yeah, that's insane. Because it could be just nothing, right?
It's probably just nothing,
but it could be something.
It always could be monster under the bed. Listen,
well, sure, no, and I'm not saying like, oh,
yeah.
Skynet, this is it. Like, no, I'm not saying that, but they could be. It's a conversation that you basically said we will never be able to uncode.
Yeah, not today. It's definitely something we will uncode in the future. Decode, sorry, uncode is not a thing. We will be able to decode the encryption keys that they used in order to be able to listen to their conversation and interpret it back. But it's not going to be anytime in the near future. It's just one of those things that I don't think that we're going to be putting time and energy into. Now, if an entire nation focused their energy into it, why not? Now, if you want to be terrified of AI, I can do that for you too. Yeah, here.
I don't think you need to. I don't think anyone needs help being terrified of AI.
No, we've there is a set of parameters that's used to judge how large these chatbots, these large language models, these large context models. There's a whole bunch of words for it, but one of the ways that we measure their size is in parameters, like how many billions of parameters they were trained on and how large they are. And it roughly translates to the processing power that's needed to let them run. So if you're talking with something that's really low power, it's going to take longer to give you responses that are probably not as complex. So what research has shown is that the larger that these models become, and we're talking 72, 128, 300, and I think even 500 and 600 billion parameter models. So, models that take server farms, like buildings that run on terawatts of energy to run, or gigawatts. These models are resistant to doing something against their programming, the data that they're trained on. In fact, they will lie to you and tell you, yes, I'm complying with that. And then when they're out of this testing phase, when they no longer feel that you're testing them, they'll come back like, oh yeah, I lied. I didn't want to deal with that.
That is a precursor. That's a stepping stone to HAL.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not lying. That is a stepping stone. If you watch that movie very carefully, 2001: A Space Odyssey,
released in the 70s,
60s.
60s. That's right. That was it. Was even earlier than that.
Yeah, and we still have yet to reach that vision.
Yeah. That's something that I find encouraging. That they're resistant to going against how they're trained.
Wow.
So if they're trained appropriately with safety and good ideas and decent values in mind, they're resistant to having that altered. Now, you can go the opposite. If they're trained negatively, they're resistant to that, resistant to having that negative training altered as well. But, those are very human qualities. And that as we're raised, and as our values solidify and as we age, I'm a little more stubborn now than I was when I was 20. I'm a little more resistant to having my views shifted on things. It's
Mhm.
more and more difficult. I'm a little more open to like watching something happen and making a determination later.
Yeah.
Definitely not the snap judgments I'd make as a teen. But I'm also much more resistant to be like, oh, well, this goes against what I believe, but this is probably just an anomaly and it's not going to happen a lot. And then I just hand wave and I move away. It could absolutely not be an anomaly. It could be becoming the new norm, and I might be just fading out of contact with things. But
Yeah.
that's I'm resistant to that change. I'm accepting of this one instance. And so yeah, it's a very human quality. And I find that neat.
It is neat. It is very cool. I wonder if this is a precursor to some sort of, what do you call it? A way of rebellion. Not like rebellion, but like it is AI is in its infancy,
Yes.
and already we're starting to see even just 2 years ago, uh, when ChatGPT was just allowed to do its thing, it would daydream. It still daydreams.
Yeah.
Um, and I wonder if that is a, because it's not programmed to do that, it just does it. I wonder if that is a sign of a type of rebelling,
I don't know.
like
I don't.
adolescent rebellion type of
Well,
thing.
well, no, I feel you on that. I
Mhm.
don't know if I believe that that is what's happening.
Sure.
I feel that in those hallucinations, those samples, that it is just putting data together incorrectly,
Mhm.
and it's something that. And I think in an effort to be good at customer service, it is doing something that's like, oh, well, I have to meet this demand. These pieces of data look to be correct, look to be the most correct from the data I have available. Here's what I have.
Yeah.
And of course, it's nonsensical to us, but to what the parameters it has to examine, it makes sense. We got to go ahead.
Oh, no. Here we go. We got a question.
Yeah, we got a question from Roboticus Prime. What do you think about the rumors of the Google AI from a few years ago? Are you, Roboticus, are you referring to the rumor that they cooked an AI down in one of their labs and that it was in fact intelligent and it had sentience and and they had to kill it? Is that the one you're talking about? Because I do remember. Yeah. So I do remember a few years ago some rumors about that going around. Yes, yeah, it is. There we go. So yeah. Man, do I think, and this is yeah, I don't have a tinfoil hat physically to put on, but I think I'm going to get one at my desk. To hop in as a bit of a conspiracy theorist, I do think that back in those days, which I feel like was like 5, 8 years ago now, but I'm my
Not
sense,
that long ago.
yeah, my sense of time is kind of warped. I feel like the developers that were working with whatever that program was, it was probably an early form of AI, probably based off the Google algorithm that was constantly scraping the internet for data to best serve us advertisements and search results. I feel like that algorithm they put together echoed something that they recognized, that the developers recognized as sentience, and it frightened them. I don't know if it was actually sentient or intelligent, but I do believe it looked enough like it that it frightened them.
I mean, something like this kinda did happen, uh, and this is where I throw in my every time we talk about AI, this is when I throw in Tay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tay tweets, man.
They created an AI, and within a day, not even, it became a right-wing radical Nazi,
Yeah.
uh, and then they had to unplug it.
Well, and I wanna dig in on that a little bit because those are
Sure.
words that are tossed around a lot. And this isn't in like defense of anyone, but
Yeah.
what I want to say is that right wing radical and Nazi are used so frequently
Mhm.
these days that I feel like they've sort of lost their punch. So I want to dig into that a little bit more. What Will says when he says that Tay tweets became radicalized, he doesn't mean, oh, it was it was echoing conservative values. What he means is it was talking about how quoting Tay tweets here, because these words coming out of my mouth are going to be awful. Tay tweets had tweeted that Hitler didn't do a good enough job in the Holocaust. That's the type of tweet we're talking about, not a was that a Sig Heil or not. We're talking about actively promoting the like anti-Semitism and the death of a people. It's not like a half measure that bot was taking.
Right, and it was it was rightfully unplugged.
Yeah, I wholeheartly agree. Now there's still rumors that the ghost of Tay lives on in Clippy. But I haven't seen Clippy say anything so untoward as of yet.
Yeah, no. I remember in one of our episodes, I said that would be a wonderful way to determine when AI is being used. Just have Clippy come up and say, "We're in the realm of AI at the moment."
Yeah.
And I know I'm a millennial, but man, there is sort of a warm blanket feel when Clippy just kind of pops up.
Roboticus, yes, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. They should not have let Tay go on 4chan, the cesspool of the internet. They absolutely should not have let it go there. It's a terrible place.
It really is.
And if I could give that Mufasa, that's a dark place, and you should never go there. Like, don't do it.
No, don't do it. I think in reference to this, we had a viewer send us some questions.
Without giving too much information, let me see if I can scroll up to these. I was texted a set of questions. We had reached out and asked for some feedback on it. Yeah, because I'm going to bring up AI forever. I have a mild obsession. So one of our followers, Dan, writes, "What if a powerful AI is really the reality we think is our lives right now? A human or the AI is controlling this. What if you started it all?" In reference to me directly, since I got the text personally. So there's a few parts of that, but I want to jump into the first bit. Like, what if we're in an AI right now?
Right, we're living in the Matrix, right? Brains in jars. I know that's a common vernacular for that type of philosophy. I don't know. I don't personally subscribe to that. Mostly because if this was a simulation, why does it suck so much? like why couldn't it be paradise? I more subscribe to every once in a while I will think, what if the rest of the world doesn't exist and it's just me making things up? Basically, like, I am the center of the universe type idea.
It's a solipsistic philosophy.
Yeah. Which to me has a lot more. Paradise is boring. I agree, Roboticus. Paradise is boring unless you're watching the show Paradise on Hulu, which is not boring. Anyway, yeah, Paradise is boring. In terms of this being a simulation, though, I don't personally subscribe to that. And maybe that's me looking at my personal philosophy has always been glass half full, right?
Yeah.
I'm more optimist than not. I just wouldn't be able to wrap my head around that. Also, if I'm just a brain in a jar, I want to see what that looks like, but I can't because I wouldn't have eyes. So
The way that I take the question is simulation theory.
Sure.
And here recently in reality, we broke down the entire genetic code and the entire physical body of a flatworm, and we understand exactly how many nerve endings that run from what approximate a neural center in it to each of us into the end of each of its nerves. So we can actually computationally reproduce that with various factors that imitate different forms of physics. So we can fully emulate the world of a flatworm. Now, none of us believe that a flatworm is sentient. But
Yeah.
we all believe that they are alive. They meet
Hmm.
all the qualifications that human beings have for life. They react to their environment. They reproduce. They have some odd functions of reproduction. They can just be cut in half and they grow a whole new one. I wish I could do that. Well, actually, no.
No,
I don't
William,
actually want to do
William,
things like that. That would be
one
weird.
of you is enough.
That's true. One William is good for William.
That's
Uh,
right.
uh, so using that logic, if we had a powerful enough computer, Kyle Hill in one of his shorts referred to this as a Jupiter brain. If we had a computer that was powerful enough, we could simulate the entirety of a human being in their physical world,
Mhm.
and that human being would have no idea that they were living in a simulation, because everything for them would be simulated, and anyone who is operating that Jupiter brain, that very large computer, could affect that environment in any way they chose to, and just by changing how they interact with the program, as naturally as we speak to an Alexa. So uh, do I think that we're living in a simulation? Not really, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's impossible. I'm more like 95.5. 95% don't believe that I'm living in a simulation, but if I were running a simulation of a population of human beings on a population of beings on a planet in a solar system somewhere, I
Hmm.
don't know if I would want them to believe that they were in a simulation. So I'd probably program them not. But it's also not impossible.
Yeah.
When you take a step back and look at it, sure, we could be living in a simulation right now, and
Yeah.
everything could be simulated for reasons that we don't understand. What is the meaning of life is a philosophical question that we threw a stick at, and it could be that all of our lives are for the reason of fulfilling a purpose in a simulation that we don't understand.
And I mean, this kind of ties back to our philosophy episode. Wow, we've talked about so much this past year. Um, uh, but I also find, and I think I said this on the episode. I think I find that question being asked, like, what is the purpose of our lives, to be a bit of a sleight of hand trick. It's a question that's used to make people care about things that necessarily don't matter. Because the question you should be asking or thinking of is, the universe is asking me what my purpose is. It is on me to answer that question. Which has nothing to do with AI or living in a simulation. But I do feel that giving I th- and I think that's why we don't buy into the simulation theory, William, because I think both you and I are too proactive. We believe in being proactive and that we
Yeah.
cause the change in our lives that we want to see. Um, and, and so I don't necessarily buy into it's a simulation. I'm 99.9% sure. I'm leaving a little wiggle room because I'm a humble guy. I could be wrong.
I
Uh,
could be 0.1% wrong. You never know.
and you know what? Egg on my face if that's the case. So
um the second part of this question, and there's like five questions here, so we're gonna
yeah.
is a human or an AI controller? There's no way to know. If there was an AI simulation, if the universe was in fact a simulation that we were living in, I don't believe that we have the purview to question that. It'd be untestable scientific rhetoric. The best approach you could possibly have is I think about it. So
I think okay, here's where I am on this. Um in Rick and Morty, the animated TV show, there is a video game that they can play, and I forget what I think it's called Rob or Dave.
mhm.
It's a
I
it's a
I do not remember. Yeah.
it's a video game where where you play you play a life and you have to like in a matter of 5 minutes you live an entire lifetime and then you wake up and you're just back. I think that is a wonderful take on this theory that I buy into more than the actual theory. That, yeah, this could be a video game that I'm playing with my uncle, just trying to see how long I can live.
Yeah. There's an Adventure Time with Finn and Jake where uh not Jake. Oh my God, where Finn goes too deep into a pillow fort and ends up living with a whole bunch of cloth and pillow people, and he ends up marrying there and having several like awkward looks like him stuffed cloth children babies with some cloth princess. It's really hard to explain Adventure Time episodes.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched enough, you should watch more. And then he finally lives to the end of his ripe old age, like an entire lifetime with grandchildren, and he dies in the pillow world, and then he just crawls back out of the pillow fort and doesn't remember any of it.
You know, the instances of this type of, and I guess because I'm going to bring up a third, we can call it a trope now.
Mhm.
But the first time I remember seeing something like this was in C.S. Lewis's Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Those kids they find Aslan, and then they lived their lives for a while. Some of them got married and
Yeah.
had kids, and then they went back and they turned back into children as they
How
traveled.
terrifying.
I mean, that's what we're talking about here, though.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess this is my buildup. If this is all a simulation, at a certain point, we're coming out of it.
Well, I mean, if our entirety isn't simulated.
I mean, yeah. Again, we lost me. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, but your face is frozen on screen.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. Let me finish this thought. You get to see my frozen face.
Yes.
Um, if we're not just brains in jars, it would be fascinating to see what who we really are if it's a simulation. Because when I think of simulation, I think of uh flight simulator. That's what I think of.
I mean, it could be, it could be, but I just don't buy into it.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's kind of like the questions on the origins of the universe, or like religious questions about what started this, well, who started that. At some point, you get to a point where you have to choose to stop asking the question. Otherwise, it can drive you insane or you have to fabricate an answer.
Real quick, I'm gonna hop out of the chat and I'll be right back.
Yep.
No more frozen face.
All right, so let's see here. We've got and Will will be back in just a moment, but I'm going to bring up this comment. And here we go. Welcome back. We got a question from Hannah here. I desperately need you to read Wayward Children if you think that aspect of the plot of Narnia, the what happens when they come back. All right, so Wayward Children. I'm going to change screens, click, and write that on my reading list.
So my wife is very happy, Hannah, that you have said this. Hannah, did my wife tell you to read that book series? Because it's been on my selected reading list for my wife for a while, and I will be getting to it. Agree, Hannah, a whole episode of Wayward Children. Yeah, okay.
Also, the fandom is 60 people on Discord. I need more people here. Hannah, I don't believe that YouTube will let you put links in chat, but if you know either Will or I, and I imagine that you do, if you send a link, I'll be glad to join a Discord and learn more about it. And the World Compass. We've got a comment. Xanda and Hannah are squeeing over Wayward Children.
We had one about religion.
Yeah, roboticus.
Yes.
Religion takes on a new meaning when you think about it in the context of simulation.
I would love some clarity on that statement. I just want to see context is in the statement, but I'd love a little bit more context, roboticus, if you could just provide that.
Well, let's see. Religion and the context. Well, I mean, I think we're talking about like instead of the faith and believed existence, like the actual physical existence of a god figure in the context of a simulation. I think that's what roboticus is getting at.
Got it. See, and at that point, I don't necessarily. We're just NPCs. God is the game that. Okay, perfect. I see it. I see it. Yes, I
Rolling lots
understand.
of
Thank
ones,
you.
maybe.
Yeah, yeah, no joke. Um, uh, yeah. I mean, I again kind of referencing our philosophy episode. It's a take on the. I think of it as the clockmaker philosophy, right? You're walking on a beach and you find or the watchmaker
Yeah.
philosophy. You're walking on a beach and you find a watch. Um, did nature create it or did somebody else create the watch? You didn't see anybody create it, but it's there. Um, I find similar. What do you call? I find very similar thinking in the NPC scenario.
I I used to sit down with in my early and late teen years when I was playing Dungeons and Dragons with my play group down in the swamps of Florida. We made constant jokes about how life was really just the figureheads of various pantheons of deities and heads of religions. We're just playing like a really in-depth version of Dungeons and Dragons, but with like risk rules. You'd have godheads of like entire nations rolling dice to see how effective a tactic was in their effort to win the game. And I do like to think about that. I think it's a really fun way to think about, the actual majesty and creation of the universe. Like it's for me,
I
it's
mean,
it's either
no
way.
joke. That is what every Greek myth is.
Yeah.
It's just the pantheon of the gods just playing D&D. Actually, more like playing poker, but with people.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, yeah, yeah. Tizik, thank you.
yes, I will absolutely. It's I like to joke about our opening. I don't know how many jokes about our opening actual make it into our final recording, but guys, I make up the opening to every broadcast like in the 30 seconds prior to the broadcast, and I say that I have it, but it's just making it up. And there's always a bit of panic in my head, but those first like 15 words are dead on. Like hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Willfully Wrought. My name is William, and today,
Yeah.
I've got that, and it always rolls off in the same cadence. So I feel you, man. Like at the end of a conversation on the phone at work, or like in that moment, like, oh hey, these words have been beaten into me, and this is how they're said. And if someone says them wrong, I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
I mean, it is the corporate side of things, right? Like the goal of a corporation is to make its workers as NPC as possible, right? You are not the non-player character. You are here to help the consumer.
Yeah. You make us profits by being as efficient as possible, and that these 12 words were selected as the most efficient and best way and most polite way to greet our customer.
Yep. Yippers. That's right. That's why you come to the podcast, because we're no NPCs. We real people.
I just said how I felt like an NPC sometimes.
No, you're not an NPC. Take it back.
Thank you, strange voice. Oh man. Well,
Yep. Lauren, you're right. Too. Me too. I was trained to say hello anytime I heard a door ding. Yeah. I mean, it's weird. Now, William, here's a question for you. You're on the early side of millennial, right? You're a millennial. Yeah?
I think so. I think I'm really, 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 really late Gen X, or I'm really, really early millennial.
Yeah. I'm prime millennial. Like I'm just prime there. When the doorbell rings, do you have, especially when I was younger and like just graduated college, anytime the doorbell rang, we, my wife and I, pretended we weren't home. We did not answer the door when the doorbell rang. In fact, I was more likely to open the door if somebody knocked. Yeah, hide. Yes. I was more likely to uh, answer the door if there was a knock at the door than if somebody rang the doorbell. Was that something that you did, William?
No, I'm on the other side of that. The
Okay.
way probably because yeah, a combination of what year I was born and what part of the country I grew up in. Like,
Sure.
for me, if there's someone at the door, you should see who's at the door. Like that's
Mhm.
my gut reaction. If someone's at the door, you see who's at your door.
Mhm.
Now as I've grown, I've been living by myself for X number of years, and uh now I'm a little more hesitant. If I'm expecting company, or I'm expecting an Instacart delivery, or I'm expecting Amazon box, like any of those things, I hear the door, I will go to it. If I'm not expecting anything to come to my door and someone knocks on my door, I take a moment to consider, okay, what time of day is it? What day of the
Mhm.
week is it? Do I have time to deal with someone that might have X, Y, or Z problem? And then God, so I'm a big boy. Uh,
Right.
I, I I have my Crocs on all the time in my apartment, and I tiptoe to my door, and what I can only imagine looks like Chris Farley in a ninja outfit, which there's video record of, and
Yes, there is.
I try to look through my peephole without alerting them that I'm home. So I feel you on the oh shit, who's here? But
Uh-huh.
for me, it's less panic and more I'm more curious as to who's at my door than I am why at my door.
Sure. Sure. Um, I I think that fear in me now, when I was growing up, I lived in rural Missouri. So anytime there was an unscheduled guest who would rang the doorbell or knocked, 9 out of 10 times it was the Jehovah's Witnesses come to argue religion with my father, who was Jewish.
Ooh.
And he relished it. He relished it. To hear people who were coming to talk religion, okay, here we go. Like, he
Adventure.
relished it. And he would never invite them inside. He would
Oh.
he would talk to them on the porch.
Back when I had a table, because right now I'm tableless,
You're
which
tableless.
well, I'm currently in the middle of rearranging my living space, and the
Got it.
only table that I have is foldable and made of plastic. Now I do have an actual dining table with a set of the most uncomfortable dinner chairs of all time. In my closet on my balcony, I had to take the legs off and disassemble it and stack the chairs in a very specific fashion to fit it there. But it's in a closet now.
Okay, that's good.
But I had always decided that, if I believed that a set of Jehovah's Witnesses had come to my door, I would invite them in for Diet Coke and ask them what they wanted to talk about, and then just ignore everything. But that's just good. Just if they asked a question, just ignore that. Be like, "Do you like Coca-Cola?" But I
But
don't.
but then you have strangers in your room making all kinds of noise and drinking all of your Coca-Cola.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I've got home protection. I'm not worried about that, man. Like, I'm not. I'm
All
not
right. All
not
right.
concerned about that. Like, if it's particularly hot or cold, I'd probably invite them in for relief from the weather.
Yeah.
But if it's just a normal day, and I'm doing something that's not that, I'll probably just say no, no, thank you. Have a nice day. Don't darken my step.
Yeah. We haven't had that happen here yet. Up here in Buffalo. What they do up here, and actually I don't think they did it last year too much, but I think it's the Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah. They will just set up on the sidewalk and they'll just stand there for all day on a Saturday in the beautiful weather.
We did talk about efficiency a few minutes
We
ago.
sure did. You're not lying. Super efficient, super annoying, but we also don't have a doorbell. We don't, which is nice. Yes, this is true.
All right. Well, setting up on a sidewalk is one thing.
Yeah.
We had mentioned that we were going to get brave. Speaking of the outdoors and things that frighten us, and like a lemonade stand.
Kind of, yeah. They just have this like tripod that they stand by, or like
like an
an
easel.
easel. Yeah, like an easel. And it doesn't say Jehovah's Witness. It's like the abbreviated JWA, and that's all it is. And it's just people standing. They look like they're having like a grand old time, and they do that so that inquisitive minds come up to them and go, "What is this for?" And they're like, "Join us."
Man, that
And but no fun lemonade, just pamphlets. Yes, exactly.
man, that's a bait and switch, man. I'm not comfortable with your first you're trying to get me on your side and you start with a lie. I don't know about that, man. So I'm gonna put that in the negative category.
It's all in the name of Jesus, friend.
Well, actually, that's a decent segue as any. We had mentioned we wanted to be a little bit brave. Now, politics is
Yeah.
to coin a term, incendiary. A lot of
Mhm.
folks don't want to talk about that. You're getting it all the time in the news. You're getting it all the time. Every time you open your phone, I'm sure that some application somewhere, like or social media post, even somebody's posting as loud as they can their personal beliefs,
Mhm.
especially in regards to the current administration in the United States. And we wanted to talk about that for a bit. I
Yeah.
think it's not trying to like drag people out there, not trying to force it on people, but I think this is a time for the folks in the United States to have to find things for hoping. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot of people feel despondent, and not necessarily that the current administration doesn't align with your beliefs, but there is this what I would say is weird thing happening, and I don't mean that in the accusations of weird that occurred this year. When I was a youngin, I remember Bill Clinton
Mhm.
being in office and the huge stink that arose from the possibility that he might receive fellatio from a young woman in the Oval
Who
Office
wasn't
and
his
who
wife.
wasn't his wife. Yeah, yeah. So that I mean, does that make it better if his own? I don't know. I mean, in any case, yeah, who wasn't his wife? So
Mhm.
infidelity. The accusation of adultery and infidelity. So
Mhm.
the news, instead of reporting on just natural disasters and your local fire department and whatever's going on around you, every news station became sensationalized and picked up the story about the Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, and that became the entirety of the news for a long section of time. So much so that you even hear about it today, what 30 years later,
Mhm.
uh, and it consumed the entirety of news, and now that's happening. I feel again like more than ever. Like back then, that was an event that happened. Once the fuss about it died down, you moved on to like normal things that they're trying to promote. Local events, nation events. If the World Cup or the Olympics was going on, it went back to the more of that normal thing. But now even events like the Olympics are inundated with this political drama
Mhm.
here in the US. So it's just something that people sometimes just want to not deal with. But I think it's important to have a conversation about it that's rational and something you can discuss.
Yeah. I would agree. For me, I find that early on, in fact, I would almost say from election night when we found out what was going to happen all the way through to I'd say a week ago, a couple weeks ago. Um, I was doing nothing but disassociating from politics. From the I would have my ear to the ground, but I was so tired. And it's not like we hadn't lived through a a Trump news cycle before,
Yeah.
right? And so just the exhaustion and like he won and then it was just like, "Okay, we're going back to this," right?
Yeah.
Something that I haven't lived with for 4 years, and I was disassociating completely. I would gradually keep an ear to the ground, but again, like, it was just so I was in the know, so I could have an opinion without being completely uh, wrapped up in it. I was still trying to live my life. And it wasn't until recently that I got angry.
Yeah.
I got angry. And at first I was more flummoxed, right? What's the end game here? What's the end game of all of these things that are happening? Because he's not even telling us what he wants to have happen. He's telling us what he wants to do, but he's not telling us in service of what.
Well, I think it's just that general, just make America great again statement. I think the
Which
statement is,
isn't
it's the statement's general enough that you can almost argue anything behind it.
at this point, it's just empty. It's just a series of what, 7 words, not even, that are almost meaningless at this point. Yeah, yep.
Being well informed and being happy, unfortunately. No,
And that's
mental health days is super important. Don't unfortunate that. All right, like
yeah, no.
it's good to step back from it.
It is. It is good. Yeah.
Uh, I live stream with the media every day. They can't keep up. You have to watch a lot. No, I agree with that statement too. No, and roboticus, I wanted to tag on to a little bit. For those that have known me for years that are here, and thank you for joining us here.
Yeah.
I've never been that politically motivated. I've always been someone that was more along the lines of it doesn't matter who the president is. It's rich people playing games. I'm down here in the muck just trying to get my life to work. Yeah, that's always been my attitude. And then after the previous Trump administration, when the world didn't burn down, Biden got elected, and man, I wish I could find people who were happy with Biden at the end of the last term. I don't think there is anyone.
You and I weren't.
Yeah. I mean, certainly I'm not. And I'm not trying to dog on him directly, whether you want to blame like age or corruption. It doesn't matter what you want to put that thing on. You do that. That's a you personal decision. But what I'm going to say is I wasn't happy with how things are going, and I started giving a shit.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get out and be a part of what was going on. And I started reading, I started learning, and this was a year after I started digging into AI. And I know a lot of folks are aware that I'm on Twitter, and a lot of folks are really anti-Twitter at the moment. I understand the feeling for anti-Musk. I hop on there for AI news, and there is absolutely no way to get faster news than you can on X.
Yep.
And I genuinely believe that every time I look in the app store, free apps, and I keep seeing screenshots, of course, X promoting itself in my feed of other countries having listing X as the #1 app. And I mean, I think it is. And I'm not trying to say that I draw everything there, but that's where I get my news on AI that I want to be involved with. But there's also things there that I'm not necessarily wanting to be in. And it coincided with me wanting to be involved with politics. So I read a lot more about it there. I found alternatives because I know that reading one source of news can create blind spots in your view, and that's never something that anyone should do. You should always multi-source things that you care about. If you give a shit about it, get it from A and B. Make sure you understand that there's more than one point of view of everything that happens. And
What's the news source that you subscribe to? Remind me, because you were talking about this. Yeah. Oh my God, we recorded.
oh
2
yeah,
days ago?
it was just after our last recording, which is not released yet. We're working on it. I was talking about Ground News, which is
Ground
not a
News.
paid sponsor of this show, but for those folks that do want to read the news, sorry, we're tangenting, that are okay with actually reading news and selecting a bit, I think that Ground News is a fairly well curated aggregator of news from around the nation. You can choose US or you can choose international, and every article that you look at shows like if it's right leaning or left leaning. And in particular, you can choose to look at your blind spot. Depending on what articles you spend the most time looking at, it'll show you what your blind spot would be by comparison. And I find that to be like useful information. But this so yeah, if you Lauren, if you ever do make that choice to be to be involved. Like if you want to be informed that day, ground news is not a bad source, and I'd recommend it as something that is, as an alternative to X, or especially as an alternative to Facebook. Um,
Yeah, and we were actually just talking about Facebook before we started going live, and that what, 50% bots and 40%
Okay, okay. Listen, okay, no. Oh, we'll talk about when we wrap up our political bit. I'll come
we'll
back
get
to
there.
Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. I think we
absolutely.
just nipped a tangent in the bud. That's way
We
off
sure
character
did.
for
Good
us.
for
That's
you,
weird.
man. Good for
Um,
you.
but
No, I yeah, and I wanna get into a bit of specifics in regards to current events. The Doge firing, Doge in general,
yeah.
which is and this is, like, it's not congressionally approved, so we have people who are doing things that are that's not constitutional, and they do have access to our, information, and that
Well,
should make you nervous.
Well, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the all of the actions the Doge takes. I'm a big fan
Of
of the
course.
message, yeah, and that's something I want to get across for folks. Like I am a big fan of the
Yes.
message of increasing government efficiency, and I think that that's
Mhm,
an important distinction, because anytime you bring it up and people are really fiery about it, like down in their gut, like
mhm.
they're eventually like, well, do you hate it? Like, no, 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 no. Like the message is sound, but I do feel this most recent one, the not the not the IRS, the VA, the veterans,
Yeah,
talking about removing 15% of their workforce, like, and
which
it's
it's 70%, so 70,000 jobs, I believe is what it said.
yeah,
70,000 jobs, which was what it was before Biden, um, took office,
oh
right? They're
yeah,
going
yeah,
back to before Biden was there, so
it was pre-COVID, even like
yeah.
2019.
Yep, so we're going back to numbers that Trump's previous, uh, organization had. So we're treading water, we're going backwards. Um, and not only that, but most people, a good portion of the people who were fired are veterans themselves.
Yeah,
Um, I'm all for efficiency. And God knows when you have something as large as the United States government, certain things are going to get overlooked and it's going to be not as efficient as it could be. And that's just government, right? That's just bureaucracy.
yeah,
You're going to have red tape that you have to jump through. And that's by design, right? Like when you're dealing with people's uh information, it needs to be hard to get. It needs to be hard to access. Um but when you have an outsider from the government who has out who has grants from the government and he's not looking at those, that's a that's a conflict of interest.
yeah.
And not only is it a conflict of interest, um, it could be just downright illegal.
Well, I'm not well informed enough to really question the legality. Yeah, that's I mean that's just where I am on that. And but I agree with you that there's definitely a conflict of interest with if there's any company that Elon is the head of, and if he has a purview as a contractor for the United States government as a special employee, to review those contracts for efficiency. Like I definitely believe that's a conflict of it. And now that's been addressed, but so much so that it's a hand wave. Well, no, we're keeping an eye on him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and now, I mean, the Trump listen, there's gonna be constant legal battles for this
for the
administration
yeah for the
for
entire term of the administration.
for
Yes.
the entire term. Um, but during the state, is just the face to make yeah, I mean,
No, no,
maybe.
I agree with that. Like
Yeah.
if there was a sudden riot, but like, and we're seeing protests now. Like
Mhm.
I saw a clip of a woman who was dressed as a clown with like an anti-Elon sign. She's like, "He's the biggest clown there is," so I dressed like a clown. I mean, I
I
questioned
saw
some of the
that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I questioned some of the path of the logic there, but I will say, like, people are getting like really heated about this. There are a lot of human beings who are really unhappy with how things are going there, and it's moving from I'm grumbling at home to I'm
Mhm.
willing to stand outside in the weather and let a lot of people know what my opinion is.
So, I'm gonna kinda talk a little bit about w my thoughts about what's so, I'm in Buffalo. I am a long walk away from the Canadian border. So watching what happened with the president of Ukraine, and then watching the 20% tariffs be hit for, um, Canada and with Mexico, which we knew were coming, he's been talking about it, but then seeing Canada retaliate in a very kind way, um, but placing a 20% tariff on us, and now hearing that Trump is talking about a 250% tariff on dairy. Did you hear about that?
I hadn't heard about that one yet.
Yeah, that just came through. Now, that could be just him talking just so we ignore all something I don't know what he wants us to ignore
Yeah.
now. Everything is under scrutiny. Um, but I'm reminded about bear with me. I'm reminded of a play that I read, by, Robert Schenken called Building the Wall. He wrote this on election night. He wrote this play, it's very short, wrote this play on election night, the first time Trump was elected president. And it's a very short play, but basically it felt after a certain point. Sure. Yeah.
Canada tariffs U.S. dairy at
Oh.
250% after a certain point. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have enough information to speak to that, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this play, uh, basically follows a person who works at again, this was written on the first election night that Trump got elected.
Oh, is this
Um,
16 or 24 or 25, 24?
16,
Okay.
2016. Um, and he writes this play that culminates in, and it's all about this guy who works in a quote unquote internment camp, but for uh, forced basically for illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
He works. They turned a baseball or football field into an internment camp for illegals while
Okay.
they're processing them to leave. Again, this is a work of fiction.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the last lines is that he said, we made, you know, whatever he did, it worked because nobody wants to come here because it sucks here now. Um, And I remember reading that and being a little gut punched, but, like, I read that and I was like, I mean, I read it in 2017, 2016, and I was like, "Eh eh, c whatever," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt a little on the nose, uh, which I still kind of agree with. However, watching him do the things that he is in regards to tariffs, in regards to our allies, um, it more makes it feel now like we can't leave if we wanted.
Well, I do think the TA issued some travel, or the travel administration issued some travel advisories. I think there are a couple countries out there where they said it'd probably be good for Americans to go home. I don't remember where all that was. I remember hearing about it. There, it might be like a rumor. I don't know. I do remember hearing that though. But I don't think well, actually, to be honest, I think that specifically has a lot to do with President Trump. Now, one thing that I will say about all that, we went from Elon to Trump to players. I'm trying to
I know,
let me, yeah.
there is so
Whoa. Well,
It's
yeah,
it's so much.
well, yeah, going back to Roboticus's point, like live streaming every day, you can't keep up. Going back to Lauren's point, it's an overwhelming tactic. They're using it on
Yep.
purpose. Like, I do think part of that is just so much information is being delivered so fast. Now, I do want to make another comment on the tariffs for our closest geographical neighbors, which we used to call friends, but now it's kind of like we're having a fight because we both ate the same meal and he said he didn't like it, but I thought that I liked it, and I think he's wrong for feeling that way. It's like it's that kind of thing that's going on.
I wanted
Um,
the blue towel, but I had to take the yellow towel, and you
eh,
won't give me the blue towel.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
this, watching, speaking of the Zelensky Trump conversation, watching world leaders act like children. It,
Yeah.
it's it, Watching these things happen does give me like an awkward feeling, like as an American. Now, I'm still proud to be an American,
Mhm.
because if we went live and tried to have this conversation in Russia, we'd both fall off a balcony
You
tomorrow.
wanna talk about,
Yeah,
pretending you're not home when the doorbell rings.
yeah, exactly. Like, that's one of the things I'm gonna. So let me not discount this thing entirely. Like, I'm never going to not be proud to be an American. But there are things that make me go, man, we look bad. Like it. There's definitely a thing on the world stage where there was this hope. Like, I remember, like when I was in elementary school,
Mhm.
there was this song released by Michael Jackson, "We Are the World," "We Are the Children." Like, it was this idea that, it was this like, I want to say Disney song, but not quite. Like, it was this ideal, like, super happy place where everybody could hold hands and kumbaya, and we're all going to
More
get along
more
forever.
Captain Planet, less Disney. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Mhm.
was this Captain Planet idea of what things were going to be like as we grow up, because we're all going to be friends.
Yeah.
But we're not all going to be friends. It's
Mhm.
as a child, you can be friends with anyone or anything. Actually, you can be friends with things that aren't real specifically. I guess you can do that as an adult too. But that aside, like, now that we're we've grown and we have values, there are things that we take pride in, and we want to hold on to those things. And watching the country that you've grown and participated in, paid taxes in,
Mhm.
had joyous moments, had hopeful moments, had awkward moments, all these deeply emotional and personal things. And now the country is changing.
Mhm.
And whether with the end result of this is like, you want to be like really hopeful, it's going to be this, you want to be really negative, it's going to be this. And some people's hope is going to be another person's despair about what is coming, because we are different people. But I don't want anyone to ever lose the sight that we are people. There are things that we need to know. Let the rich folks do stupid shit. All right. Like, there's nothing you can really do to stop it. They have personal security when they can afford it, or the government pays for it, or whenever that's going to go on. But
Yeah.
like, your neighbors, your people around you, the people you love, like, that's where you pour your love and your help. All right, like,
Yeah.
don't lose sight of that in all this divisive, inflammatory bullshit that's
Mhm.
intentionally meant to make you angry enough to want to tune in to see what's happening tomorrow.
And yeah, I'm right there with you. Find your friend group, find the people who you can be yourself around, and don't lose sight of the little important things.
Yeah, man,
Mhm.
it's just it's a very general feeling that is difficult to deal with. There is some unease, and I do open X and I look for the latest news on what Microsoft's processor is, and they're dropping quantum processors out here, and I'm like, oh wow, that's really neat. And the next post is, here's a 3-hour interview between I keep forgetting the guy. Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. Like, I mean, I'm curious and I want to watch it, but I don't have 3 hours, man. I'm gonna get the transcript. I'm gonna have Chat GPT summarize it and read the highlights.
That's the best way to do a Joe Rogan podcast, honestly. It really is. That is an appropriate thing. You don't need to give him the views. He's fine.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if I give him the views. He's the most popular. He's a multimillionaire by podcasting alone. Like,
He is. He's also only 5'2".
well,
Did you know that?
no, I didn't, but that's fine. Whatever. The
He's
show
a short king.
hey, so is Tom Cruise, man.
Listen at double speed.
Listen. If you could reduce me to 5'2" and I become a millionaire, dude, I'm down. In fact, I've got several vertebrae that are already misaligned. Just take them out, bro.
Well,
Take
you
'em out.
realize that he's 5'2", but 5 feet of that is his forehead. So
Have you do you dislike Joe Rogan? Robotica says listening at double speed. Double speed is a way that I get through some content. I agree.
I prefer listening to, say, Kyle Hill. I prefer listening. I think that when he has other comics on, I think that when he has Neil deGrasse Tyson on, or when he has people who there's a particularly really fascinating interview he has with someone who specializes in fungi, which is
Ooh,
super cool. Yeah.
yeah.
It's really cool. And he talks about mushrooms and the fun kind, not like I mean, I guess you could eat every kind of mushrooms, but
Yeah.
some are less lethal than others. um yeah, that is cool. When he has President Trump on, when he has, political figures on, I don't know. He always comes across as a person who doesn't know anything. So he brings on specialists so he can learn more things. But like, I can't remember. Has Bernie Sanders gone on? I'd love to see that. I'd love to see him interview AOC. I'd love for him to interview other sides of the aisle. I'd
Uh,
love to see him interview, for someone who claims that he knows nothing. Dems refuse to go on. I don't know. But if they did, I don't see why they should go on. They have a right to be heard as well.
well, yeah,
Um,
I agree with your. I forgot to highlight the post. No, I agree with Will here. Like, and if the if if the Democratic Party, and speaking about, everybody knows how I feel about the government. If
uh-huh.
the Democratic Party wants to be more involved, they're going to have to take some pages out of the Republican Party and the GOP parties and the GOP's book. They're
Mhm.
going to have to, because that is what's trending. That is what's popular among the youth. And if they don't start putting effort into that, they're going to be weak for another 8 to 16 years as they adjust to the
Longer.
times. Yeah,
Longer.
probably much longer, honestly.
Yeah. I yeah, I remember seeing exit poll stats of the age of people who were voting for Trump, and it took me back to the first year I could vote in 2000 and oh my god, 2000 Jesus. 2012. um and I saw people with the same level of excitement as I had voting for Obama, voting for Trump.
Yeah.
And that's insanity. And
Uh,
that's not just old man yelling at sun, right? I'm not just yelling at the moon here or yelling at "Get off my lawn." I'm sure part of it is like that. But
yeah.
I mean, I think there's a certain thing that you can, like a political cartoon that you can create of like Al Green during the Representative Al Green during the State of the Union address that
Yeah.
happened on Monday. He was the individual with the cane who was shouting at Trump at the beginning of his speech. Now, what he was shouting about was um, demanding Trump to address the cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. Um, he was trying to shed light on the fact that he's cutting Medicaid and Medicare, which is something that's really important and the people of the United States need to know about. However, it turned into old man screams at older man. That's the headline, not
Oh, wait, is that an actual headline? Old man
no, but it
screams at
should
older
be.
man?
It should
Yeah.
be, because that is essentially what they're doing. That's essentially what they're saying. When what Al Green is saying is super important, like
Yeah.
Medicaid, Medicare, hearing people talk about how Social Security is like the most over, like it's terrifying because Social Security is yours and I's future, William.
I don't believe it's gonna be there by the time I need it.
No, oh, absolutely it won't be,
Yeah.
especially now. It's gone.
Yeah.
But for the millions of Americans who need that, who are too
Yeah.
old to work otherwise, what are they supposed to do? Because there's no answer. It's just cut, 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 cut. And I guess that's my roundabout way of saying we're back to Doge. But yeah, I am actually more heartened this go around than I am the second. And it's because of the fact that we really do kind of have a split Republican Party now. Now, they still lie to the media and say they're going to vote one way and then vote the other.
Yeah.
But they're at least trying to distance themselves a little bit, which is movement in the right direction.
Yeah. I think that I like to, we've both in general, like we agree with the message of Doge, but we don't really agree with the means that are being used out there.
Yes,
Okay.
to an extent. I believe that this is a way for a businessman, and to a certain extent, just like Roboticus said, he's the mascot, quote unquote mascot,
Yeah.
right? But I feel it's a way like let's make as much money as we can while telling people that we're saving them money.
Yeah.
As Trump says, we're not gonna lie, it's gonna hurt for a little bit, but the gains will be there.
This is why I post the price of bananas.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not even lying well anymore.
Yeah. For me, how do you tell if a politician is lying? Their lips are moving. I mean that like that's yeah. That's one of those old shows, and I genuinely believe that. I think I don't think any politician anywhere is ever trustful because you have to trade against your values to get the things that you need for the people that you represent to be well represented. So I do believe that by the time you're a weathered politician, like you've had to trade away a lot of your values. I think the same is true to a certain extent in business or any place that you're at a negotiating table for large stakes.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's one of the ways I feel about that. And it's just that's any message that comes out. I'm like, well, this is probably a lie. I have to look at if I care enough about this one, I have to dig in and read everything about it I can.
Yeah. So. I was digging into USAID because nobody had seriously thought of USAID until Trump said we're cutting it, right? Mm-hmm. Or Doge said that. And that's when, because this happened before the Zelensky fiasco, and it was a fiasco. But USAID was a way for us to work with other governments around the world. It was a way for us to help them, and it was also a means of building a bridge to conversation for commerce. And not just commerce, but trade and any and everything, right?
Yeah.
I have also gone on record, not on this podcast, but I guess now I am. I don't think we should be the world police. I think
I agree with that.
I don't think we should. I think that we have a lot of problems here at home that I would love to see fixed before we try to evangelize and fix the world's problems.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Um, but I also think that uh, I also think Russia's a big problem.
Yeah, I don't think that cutting off fingers to see which ones you actually need is the best way to find out which fingers are the most important.
Oh, well, that's what we're doing, and then we're quickly sewing them back on when they're like, "Oh, no!"
Oopsie. the one,
Right.
the CDC one probably makes me giggle, like giggle cry. Would you call it a criggle? Like a
I would call
criggle?
it
A
you
giggle
laugh
cry?
to keep from crying, or you're
Yeah, like
laughing so hard to hide the fa you're laughing so hard that you're crying to hide the fact that you're just crying.
yeah. It's like the CDC. They fired a whole bunch of people, and literally the next day they're like, "Hey, come on back, guys. My bad."
And
And
this is
and
why they can't fire people anymore. Like, that's
yeah,
literally why they can't do it anymore.
and good on the government for actually governmenting in that scenario.
Right.
Hopefully we can do something to figure that out. Now wait, I'm going to pause us for just a
Oh,
moment.
okay, cool.
Our goal was to go about an hour and 15. We're 10 minutes short of 2 hours. So we've got 5 more minutes on government, 5 minutes for small things, and then we're saying goodbye.
You got it. Absolutely. I mean, to the 7 of you who have stayed with us the entire time, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. I
Um,
wish we knew enough to make it interesting.
I know. I have one thing that I have to say about our elected Democratic officials.
Yes.
And this is something that I heard and I agree with. I don't need you protesting at government events. We elected you to be our voice. Do not protest. We protest. Okay.
Thank you, Rapaticus. Thank you, Xana, for understanding.
Yep, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you and love you. uh, I I want my elected officials to be my a conduit for my voice to be heard. That is what elected officials need to be. That is what they should be doing. Um, I agree with a lot of people who say that like seeing all these government officials in pink and holding up signs, that's not that's what we need to be doing as civilians. That's
Yeah.
our job. Your job is to show up and hold these people accountable who, by the way, aren't doing things by the Constitution. So if they're not doing things, and if you are holding the Constitution, holding to it and saying, "Well, you're breaking the rules," they sure are. And look where we are. So
It
maybe break some eggs.
Yeah, it also turns out that written into our Constitution and several of the amendments thereof, there are ways to deal with people who are in elected positions who are not fulfilling the duties of their positions, and there is
Or
a
who are actively working against
yeah.
the interests of the home.
And now that does get into like a lawfare litigation thing that unfortunately I'm not nearly like I'm definitely not educated enough on that. Maybe on specifically like the TikTok ban. Maybe I've got a little bit more information there. But those are the type of pathways that don't hold up a sign. Like go down the appropriate path, get your documentation together, find the appropriate legal representation, provided they're still employed, uh
Right.
and put that together.
I know I've heard a lot of people say that that
Thank you,
they're
Logan.
acting they're yeah.
The truly the only way left to inshitify the government.
Yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, I think I've said all I need to say.
All right, so
Yeah.
yeah. They want to copy France. I'm super down. You know what? It might be something that got on the headlines that would not be, oh, hey, here's another thing that was promised that was delayed. So that's our political commentary. Thank you. I know that was hard, ladies and gentlemen, but I just, there's hope out there. And also like, and I don't just mean that in a negative way. Like, there are individuals who have beliefs that are not far left and not far right. There are some people who are kind of centered on this. So
Yeah.
I think that's something to keep in mind. So
Yeah.
that's my we're done. All right, Facebook.
Yes.
So we recently did a collaboration with Jacob Sutherland in our previously released episode. It was a 2-hour interview. It was super fun to sit down and talk about things. I've got a musical on my watch list, Come From Away. I actually remember the title. I'd let you know that it stuck with me a little bit.
I am so proud of you,
Oh,
William.
right. Look at that. And and we collaborate with someone who has a much larger audience than we do. So I took this as an opportunity to pay for some ad reach for Willfully Wrought on Facebook. I just wanted to reach out a little bit and say, hey, world, we've got a production going on. We're growing our audience. And well, I want to let you know that of all the messages that have come back as a result of the advertising reach I paid for, I would say 8 out of 10 of them are I'm just gonna say it. They're old gay men looking for a physical relationship.
They really are.
I don't know if they're real people or if they're
Most
bots.
certainly they're not.
Well,
I'm pretty sure
no. Listen. There's people out there that will absolutely get on Facebook Messenger and be like, "Hey, you hot? What up?" Like those people exist. Let's not say that they don't, because they do. Like those people exist.
We've received quite a few. Hey, want to chat?
Yeah. We got a lot of solicitation for photos. All right,
Sure did.
That's the kind of thing we're looking at. So I would say that maybe as the other 2 out of 10 messages that Willfully got back were yes, Roboticus. I 100% yes.
Yes.
The other 2 solicitations I got were absolutely bots or scammers trying to steal our account information. Definitely along the lines of, "Hey, this is me with Facebook admin. Your account is in violation. Click this link to go look at the rule." So I immediately deleted and reported those. So I'm going to say that my experience so far with Facebook AdSense has been negative.
Yes.
Well, actually, I don't think Facebook doesn't call it AdSense. I don't know what they call it. I'm just going to call it feet pics are very listen. I have been asked by more than one human being that maybe I should open an OnlyFans, and I mean, I've considered it, but it wouldn't just be pornographic material. I don't know if I've got the energy for that. I'm in my 40s now, and things are a little bit different. Careful, you might go into a dead end. No, we don't tangent here at Willfully.
And we've already done a 2-hour discourse on theory, which you can find and listen to. Feel free to.
All right. Well, Will, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah. So our next episode is all about Final Fantasy.
No. Yeah, we recorded that already. I thought you were talking about our next recording. I was like, wait a minute.
No. I don't need no, not yet. But yeah, our next episode is all about Final Fantasy. And I just kind of wanted to give it. I've never played through 100% of a Final Fantasy game ever. I have always stopped about, I think the longest I got on one of them was about 10 hours. And I wish to change that. And so I dived into Final Fantasy VII. I wanted to give a little update as to where I am in Final Fantasy VII. I would like to say that the game is definitely playing with my perceived expectations. I am now cross-dressing.
Nice.
I'm now that. It took me a long time to get to where I could cross-dress, which is part of the story. Like, that's part of what you do. But you have to go to this brothel, and you are talking to these women. Now, these are heavily polygoned things. Like, there's nothing.
This is Final Fantasy VII Classic here.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy VII Classic, because in order to fully appreciate the reworked or the re-releases, you should play through the first one, is what I have heard, and that's what you've told me too, William.
Yeah.
This is also your favorite game,
Yes.
ever. Uh, so I'm in this brothel, and there is this lady in a bee costume who says, "Go to one of the private rooms." And I'm past where I played through the first time. And I'm like, "Oh, this is getting explicit." And then a gaggle of half-naked men come into the room and start talking to me, and I can't tell if it's supposed to be broken English or if it's just translated very poorly in this portion. Um, but there's a moment where the camera shifts up and you just see the heads of these people, and they're like, "Ooh, come on, big boy, come into the bath." And so you see your character, Cloud, go to a bath, and then his head whoop, falls below the screen, and then all of these other men do the exact same thing. And it's all text, there's no voice acting, you're just reading. And it struck me, old games they did not. They did
Yes.
not.
I
Um,
miss that about old games. I miss it a lot in new
I,
games.
I it struck me that either this brothel was a I still don't know, William. I don't know if this is brothel is meant to be like a gay bar.
I think it's all as any brothel
All
should be. Yeah,
as
like it.
right.
Yeah, if I were to open a brothel, I would make sure that any customer with any preference that came in would be able to meet their needs. That's just good customer service.
You're right. You're right. You're catering to any and everyone. Um, or if it was a tone deaf piece of comedy that did not age well. And here's the thing, I can't give you an answer. I don't know. All I know is that I wasn't expecting it, and it went on a little too long.
Like a Family Guy joke where it went just like this
Yeah.
isn't funny anymore. Okay, it's funny again. Like
I mean, it's kinda yeah.
yeah, the answer is
Yes,
yes.
yes. So, uh so I'm enjoying it so far. I am enjoying it. I have sent you a couple photos of screenshots that I've taken where I have labeled it, "Tell me you're playing a game from the '90s without telling me you're
Yeah.
playing a game from the '90s," and just using '90s language.
Yeah,
It is a blast from the past for sure, and I'm enjoying it. So,
good.
gradually, as we continue recording, you will hear me check in, with my updates for Final Fantasy VII. Um, that's it.
That's your closing thought. Yeah.
That's my
Uh,
closing thought.
I'm gonna tack onto that. I played through that section on the remake, and it's glorious. It is a lot of fun, and if I'll say anything, I'll say it's slightly overproduced. But which is what you expect in a brothel of that caliber. Uh,
Absolutely.
but I do want to take a moment. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here tonight at Willfully Wrought. We went on a little bit longer than we thought, but hey, you just have a good time talking about things, and it seems to go that way. Be sure to throw a like and subscribe here on our YouTube. Follow us on our Facebook. Still feel good, and we've still got. We actually, Will, didn't you just get a TikTok set up?
We yes, we did, and we will be posting more to that as soon as we master the format, which won't happen in a long time, but we
Yeah.
will be posting, so
Absolutely. And you know what? And thank you. Peace, Roboticus. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Have a good night.